So I'm going to make a start. Everyone happy? Good morning. Just going to give everyone a chance to join and for everyone to come into the room. Good morning. If you've just joined, we're just going to give everyone a chance to come and join in. Okay, I'll make that 2 minutes past, so I think it's a good idea that we make a start. Good morning, and thank you very much for taking the time to attend our webinar this morning, Lending Greener Together. My name's James Chutter. I'm a corporate account manager from Leeds Building Society. I've been in the industry for around 15 years, and I work closely with our commercial team in developing features focused on green lending. So this webinar came about by the four of us discussing the green agenda at a mortgage event and deciding that we wanted to do something to highlight the scale of the issue and look at how greening lending can have a positive impact. The green lending features that we're going to look at today aren't going to be the one and only silver bullet that's going to solve absolutely everything, but we thought that by collaborating, we're hoping to take the first step to making a meaningful impact. So I'm joined by some fantastic speakers today, so I'm going to run through the agenda and tell you a bit more about them. So our first session is from Rachael Hunnisett from the Green Finance Institute. Rachael's core focus at the GFI is to establish a sustainable green mortgage market, which is scalable and plays a significant role in improving the energy efficiency of UK housing stock. Rachael's session will be painting what I see as quite a bleak picture of the challenges that we're facing through climate change. We'll then be looking at, from Leeds Building Society, so I'll be taking a session to support first-time buyers with increased affordability through our energy-efficient homes. Then we'll be joined by Adam Sheldon, who's National Account Manager at Kensington. Adam's been in the industry for 10 years and has experience in direct mortgages, intermediary distribution and specialist lending. Adam's session focuses on innovation from Kensington through their Eco Cashback product. Finally, there'll be a session from Erika Moreira, who is a Senior Product Manager at Barclays and leads the bank's sustainability strategy for mortgages. This includes developing products and propositions to help mortgage customers navigate the transition to low carbon homes. Erika's session will look at their approach to green lending through the Greener Home Reward product. The presentation is due to take around 45 minutes. If you do have any questions, then please use the chat function and we'll do our best to answer these at the end. But before we get started, I thought we'd just do a quick poll to see how everybody's feeling around the sort of green agenda at the moment. Just got to go away and find it now. There we go. So hopefully you'll see that on your screen now. So we've just got two quick questions. So at the moment, as a mortgage broker, are you proactively speaking to your customers about green lending? And how confident do you currently feel talking to customers about green lending and its benefits? Brilliant. I think we've got everyone's answers in there now. Thanks very much for taking part in that quick poll. So just share the results. So quite an even Stevens when it comes to whether you're actually speaking about green lending at the moment, around 50% of you, yes and no. And then when it comes to being confident, again, really even, 50% of you not confident, and then 39% are feeling confident around talking about green mortgages. So yeah, thanks very much for sharing that. Excellent. So now I will take the time to hand over to Rachael Hunnisett, our first speaker of this morning. Over to you, Rachael.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. And thank you for the intro, James. Really interesting to see that 50% of you on the line aren't confident in talking about green mortgages to your customers. So hopefully can do a bit to dispel that and support a bit of that thinking. So as James mentioned, the first bit's quite bleak, but then hopefully kind of will lead into talking about so much of the opportunity in the green mortgage market and how there is a fantastic opportunity for mortgage brokers to really lead the charge when it comes to net zero. So as James mentioned, I'm Rachael Hunnisett. I lead the Green Mortgage campaign at the Green Finance Institute, which forms part of our much wider built environment programme. And its core focus is decarbonising the built environment. So for you, those of you who perhaps aren't familiar with the Green Finance Institute, we sit independent of public and private sector. And the GFI works across lots of different sectors to channel capital at pace and scale towards those innovative financial solutions which can support the UK's race to net zero. So in the scope of today, those innovative financial solutions are green mortgages. Today, I'm going to set the scene around kind of what's happening globally, what's happening here in the UK, and what the UK's housing impact is directly on global warming. I'll talk about different types of green mortgage, some of the things we're seeing in the market now and some of the things exciting in the future, and fundamentally the important role that mortgage advisors have to play and hopefully address some and bring some of that confidence. So I don't know, James, I can't see your face anymore, so I've got no idea if you're nodding in terms of if we're going to do that sort of thing again, but hopefully we'll do another poll like that at the end and see if there's been any more comfort level or not, in which case please let me know. So thank you for switching over. Climate change is a defining crisis of our time, and it's happening even more quickly than we feared. But we are far from powerless in the face of this global threat. As the UN Secretary General is quoted for saying, the climate emergency is a race we are losing, but it is a race we can win. Just before we came online, we were talking about the Channel 4 documentary that I think is on at the moment, which I think fills us with a huge amount of optimism. And the kind of ringing piece of advice from that was, you know, this isn't something we can lose. There's still time. There's still time to do something. So, you know, global temperatures are rising, billions of tons of CO2. So you'll be familiar with some of these stats, but just kind of a bit of a reminder to as James puts it, make it look a bit bleak. Billions of tons of CO2 are released into the atmosphere every year. Human activity is producing greenhouse gases at record highs. And in fact, the 7 hottest years on record have been between 2015 and 2021. Glaciers and ice sheets are melting faster than ever, which of course is causing sea levels to rise. Some really shocking videos of kind of glaciers crashing into the sea, which of course is causing those levels to rise. Our food and water security is threatened. In many regions now, crops that have thrived for centuries are failing to survive. And of course, extreme weather has always been part of our Earth system. However, extreme weather is now becoming more frequent and more intense as the world warms. Heat waves, droughts, typhoons, hurricanes are causing mass destruction across the world. And sadly now 90% of all global disasters are classed as weather and climate related, which costs the global economy an estimated $520 billion every single year. So a huge amount of money is channeled into dealing with the effects of climate change. Wouldn't it be wonderful to read that into preventing it? While science confirms, of course, that climate change is irrefutable, it also tells us that it is not too late. James, if you click, a fancy wheel should appear in front of all of our eyes. Wonderful, it works, thank you. So looking at the drivers to climate change, the changes to the climate system, and then the wider impacts on the outside of that wheel there, it is shocking now to think of how many of those directly link to the mortgage industry here in the UK. To save you reading through it, I've done the homework. If you click again, James, that should narrow it down. So arguably here, there are a few more. However, when you think of UK housing stock at the epicentre of the UK mortgage market, flooding, coastal erosion, even if not directly to the security property, impact the mortgageability and insurability of a home. Fires, damages to infrastructure, risks to water supplies and thermal efficiency, they all have a role to play when it comes to lending decisions. Perhaps not so much now, although they do currently in the market system, but we'll see that happening more and more as these climate emergencies become more frequent. So directly, what is the impact of climate change or kind of already in the UK? You head over to the next slide, please, James. Shockingly, in the UK, we already see 5,000 cold and 2,000 heat-related deaths per year that are directly attributed to poorly insulated homes. July last year was the hottest on record, with temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius. Hot weather dries the ground, which increases the risk of flash flooding. And by 2070, we are now forecast to have double the amount of flash flooding in the UK that we had compared to 1990s. And this isn't just an inconvenience. These things directly impact the market that all of us on the call today work in. If flooding were to increase, we could see the increase in the number of uninsurable properties. And as buildings insurance is a standard condition of a mortgage offer, it's easy to see the link between less mortgageable properties and the very real climate risks that we're facing as a country. Or perhaps, as we're beginning to see in the USA, increased flood risk has sent insurance premiums soaring, particularly, I'm sure we've all seen the headlines about California. And those insurance premiums soaring meaning that lenders might, or some already have, particularly in the States, started factoring that cost into mortgage affordability. And that doesn't impact us as much in the UK until 2039. In 2039, flood re ends, which is the rebalancing of insurance risk for flooding in the UK. And once that is no longer part of the market, there's a lot of question marks about how do we rebalance that risk, and how do we make sure that consumers aren't paying huge amounts of insurance premiums out. So definitely one to watch. In 2015, together with 194 other countries, the UK signed into the Paris Agreement, which is a legally binding agreement to meet net zero by 2050. And that means that our carbon emissions must not exceed the activities that we do to offset them. So in essence, we must become carbon neutral. However, the UK has the oldest, leakiest housing stock of all of Europe. 23% of all of our carbon emissions in the UK come from buildings, and our homes emit more carbon than all of the cars on the road in the UK. What is the mortgage industry doing to address this? So it's been estimated that a £250 billion investment is needed in UK housing to meet net zero, and that finance just simply can't come from the government alone. That's a large chunk of that will have to come from private capital, and mortgages are ideally placed to support that that transition in our economy. So it's a really exciting opportunity for us all to really support as we move towards net zero, and of course a commercial opportunity too for mortgage advisors. So if I go on to the next slide, James mentioned as I came in the mission of the Green Mortgage Campaign. So I came into this role in January of this year, and spent the first few months speaking to everyone who would talk to me about the challenges in the UK mortgage market for green and scaling green lending, and landed on 3 core areas that needed work: narrative and comms. There was a lot of misinformation in the market. Enabling mortgage lending, so blueprinting out mortgage products, supporting mortgage lenders to develop propositions. And the third was driving excellence in distribution, which I'll talk a bit about the Mortgage Fund Action Group in a bit, but that's a bit of the work that we do with them. And it was really clear to me that we couldn't move that market without supporting mortgage brokers. I looked at the most recent stats last week for a report I was writing, and 84% of the UK mortgage market is now intermediated. When I started working in mortgages 10 years ago, that was 75. So we've seen that growth even just in that period of time. So I came out with this campaign mission to create a green mortgage market which is scalable and plays a significant role in decarbonising the UK's 29 million homes. So how do we go about that? So I'll talk a little bit about some of the products on sale at the moment. So James, if you could go next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So I've put 4 here, but it's really 3 and kind of the 4th underpinning. There's different areas that can be supported through green mortgage product design. You've got your incentivization through product features, and that's products which incentivize customers through things such as what we see in the market is your discounts, your cashbacks, partnerships with providers for discounts, for example, like 50% off a Hive energy thermostat, that sort of stuff. Now, these products do sometimes get widely criticised, and I think what's really important to remember about these products that do give this margin discount or this cashback is these are supporting lenders to collect a huge amount of data in the marketplace on the kind of customers that are taking these products, the sort of application, the sort of uses, the kind of behaviour and payment profile of these customers, and that is all supporting. So that's kind of a foundation level for where the market is now. And that's all supporting further innovation. It's not a case of, great, we've got a product on sale, we're done. This is about continual evolution, but nothing in a market ever moves without significant amount of data to underpin it. So it's really important to remember when we talk about green mortgages and the significant value they are currently having in the UK mortgage market. The second is products which incentivise purchasing decisions. So arguably a really clear link between driving a customer to a greener, more sustainable home is something such as enhancing their affordability, like the Leeds Building Society have done. You can borrow more money against an energy efficient home. You can clearly see how that's going to drive consumer outcomes and might even get people on the ladder that wouldn't have been able to get onto the ladder before. So those products play an important role. But of course, we know that we can't build our way to net zero by 2050. We simply aren't building enough houses. So we need to address the existing housing stock too. And that's where the third category of products come in, which are products which integrate retrofitting works within the mortgage journey. Two key ways of doing this. You can either do this through a lender that has a particular affiliation with a provider, so such as this mortgage comes with solar panels, we can deliver that. Or the second way is to integrate a whole home energy survey into the mortgage. So at the time, let's say you're remortgaging from lender A to lender B, at that time when a standard mortgage valuation would happen, you might have an energy survey done at the same time, and which could look at, let's say, 10 different ways that a customer could upgrade their home. And the energy survey, the customer looks, that's brilliant, I'd like to finance that. And then that's where some flexible product design is needed, where a lender could potentially, again, there's lots of different ways this could be done, but lender could potentially offer a customer a flexible drawdown facility. So they've got 6 months, a year to do that work while they're living in the property. And then at the end of that product, of that period, the customer then qualifies for a green mortgage because their affordability is arguably more because their energy bills have come down. There's a whole debate about house prices that I don't intend to get into today, but potentially there could be other credit risk benefits as well. There is a Bank of England paper that with some data that contains that essentially if your energy efficiency is higher, you're less likely to go into arrears. There is a direct link between that, and of course, got another energy price rise coming up in the new year. We're beginning to see household purses stretched more and more and more. And then, of course, there's other benefits, which I'm sure Adam can talk to you more about in terms of securitisation benefits to the lender, which then mean a genuine discount will be passed on to the customer, meaning that we're not just compressing lenders' market margin. I don't believe that long term it is a strong model for the UK market. I believe that things that support customers to make those changes in line with what they want will really scale and drive volume in this market. And then underpinning all of that is holistic and educational benefits offered by lenders. So helping customers to understand what kind of what the energy profile of their home is, how to make small changes, how to make big changes, where to go for that information, where to go to find the builders, where to go to find the trades. We're seeing a lot more of that in the marketplace at the moment. There's been some exciting announcements from lenders on that in the last few weeks. I will quickly whiz over the next slide because I'm conscious that I'm eating into a bit of Erika's time, but she said she'd have a bit less. So James, I apologise on that. So I won't go on to. I'll skip over this one. I've just said this in the deck that gives a couple of examples of different products in each of those categories. I borrowed this slide from the Mortgage Climate Action Group, which for any of you who aren't familiar with, it's a collaborative, non-commercial initiative led by distributors. And that's now the official steering group on climate for the Association of Mortgage Intermediaries, aiming to all of us, I'm sure. And they develop kind of a joined up approach to how the distributors support the kind of shift towards net zero. Mortgage Climate Action Group have a number of steering groups which focus on that innovation and providing critical tools to mortgage brokers. So if you'd like to see any of their resources or get involved in any of their working groups, there is more information on the Green Mortgage Advice website, which is greenmortgageadvice.uk. So what does this mean for mortgage advisors? A few things here. Mortgage products and affordability, in my belief, will become more complex and nuanced. You know, homeowners will need support to know what finance is available to them. And the reason I say finance is I don't for 1 second suggest that mortgage advisors need to become experts on the type of battery storage you need for a solar panel or what sort of heat pump. And actually, I would advocate for not getting too heavily involved in that conversation. You don't currently, if a customer comes to you to raise finance for a kitchen, you don't currently say to them, brilliant, are you going to Wix's or B&Q and what kind of handles are you going to get? We don't expect you to become an expert in the tech, become an expert in the finance and really understand how you can support your customers with this need. You don't need to become an expert in the tech. Advisors who add value here are really going to stand out. And it's an opportunity to deepen relationships and open up those conversations. When I first started mortgage advising, it was all about know your customer and those soft facts that you kind of scribble around the edge of the fact find. That makes me sound really old because I know they're all digital now, but used to be scribbling around the edge of fact find. And those soft facts feed into more than just kind of getting to know your customer. Discussing energy efficiency should form part of that standard compliance. And there are some real life risks of not engaging here. So to give one example, imagine a customer comes to you for a mortgage and they say within 2 years, I'm thinking of getting solar panels. I'd like to use mortgage finance for that. And you don't really think much of that. And you put them on a 5-year fixed with a lender who perhaps doesn't allow solar panels. And 2 years later, the customer comes to you and says, right, I'd like to do some additional borrowing for my solar panels. and they find out that if they'd have gone to XYZ lender, they could have had a £2,000 cashback, or they could have had this, or could have had that. And you say to them, well, actually, you can't do additional borrowing for solar panels. And in addition, your lenders actually prohibit that as part of their terms and conditions. Understandably, the consumer then has a choice to make on whether they come and have a conversation with you about rebating their ERC so they can remortgage elsewhere. So there are some real compliance risks in the market now of not engaging, or not at least signposting. And the same applies to if you're raising mortgage finance for grants or other areas, but conscious that I've eaten way over my 10 minutes, so I won't go into that too much. Advisors have a significant opportunity to play when it comes to decarbonising housing stock. So I'd kind of ask the question rhetorically, how can your business do its part? So last slide, please, James. I've mentioned most of these resources throughout the presentation, so I won't go into them in detail. You've got the Green Mortgage Advice website, GFI's broker handbook, which is available on the Green Finance Institute's website. The Mortgage Hub lists all of the 61 different mortgage product types and over 500 individual rates, and the 38 lenders who have those on the market. And the Energy Savings Trust website has some really good tools on it that can just help kind of develop that understanding. I know we've got a Q&A at the end, so please do pop some questions in the chat bar. Happy to go through them. Thank you for listening. I really hope this has excited you about the massive opportunity and not depressed you too much. The massive opportunity that there is for mortgage brokers in this part of the market, not only to support customers, but also commercially too. I will hand back to you, James, and apologise for going over.
No, not at all, Rach, and thank you very much for that very informative session. There we go. So now that Rachel has I suppose, painted the scene of where we're all sitting at the moment, I'm going to take 10 minutes to talk you through about how Leeds Building Society is making some changes to our affordability assessment, and how some of the things that we're doing around retrofit to try and answer some of those questions that Rachel has posed today. So at Leeds Building Society, our purpose is putting home ownership within reach of more and more people, generation after generation. So that means we've got a really big focus on first-time buyers, and this slide sort of goes to show, I suppose, the challenge that first-time buyers are facing at the moment. So I've used some data from the ONS to look at the average house price going back to 1953 versus the average salary, and you can see that there's quite a steep trajectory in house prices versus how much your average salary's gone up. If we go back to 1953, the average house price stood at a £1,692, with the average salary being 333, which works out as around 5 times salary. The average house price now, as you can see, has absolutely rocketed, especially in the last few years, to now just under 290,000, with the average salary being 34,000, and that works out to be around an 8.5 times salary multiple. And this has had the most effect and most negative effect on young people trying to get their foothold on the housing ladder. And we've seen the age of first-time buyers creep up and up and up, and it's had the biggest effect in those aged 25 to 34-year-olds, as we've seen the rates of them being able to buy their first home collapse and fall into a rental cycle. So the average deposit for first-time buyers has actually got larger as well. So it's up to around 63,000, and it's taking longer for those first-time buyers to try and save a deposit. It's likely that they're also going to need some support from their parents, where they're either going to be needing a cash injection, or potentially they're going to need to live rent-free for a minimum of sort of 10 years to be able to save that first deposit. So the major issue of this, as Rachel sort of alluded to earlier, is that there isn't enough housing stock currently in the UK, and there aren't enough houses being built to try and deal with the demand. From the research that we've done at Leeds Building Society, we estimate that over the next 15 years, the UK is going to require an additional 5 million new homes, which works out to be 340,000 per year. And this is obviously greater than the government's target / not target of 300,000 homes to be built, which they haven't actually hit since 1971. So housing, in our view, is at its least affordable for around 150 years. And over the next 5 years, we estimate that around 426,000 people, which is the size of Coventry, are unlikely to be able to get onto the housing ladder and fall into that rental cycle. So there's a lot that needs to be done to support first-time buyers. So at Leeds Building Society, we started to look at ways of how we can help first-time buyers with their affordability challenge. But in the other side of things, we've also got the wider challenge, like what Rachel's gone through with in terms of climate change, and also reducing our own carbon footprint by 2030 by 50%, and then getting to carbon neutral by 2050. And like all lenders, we're working on reducing our carbon emissions in scopes 1, 2, and 3. Scope 1 focuses on things that I suppose we control, so things like our properties, and we've made a fantastic start to that. We've now got a completely carbon neutral head office up in Leeds, which is rated A on an EPC rating. And in scope 2, we've been working really closely with our partners. So we've already been certified as carbon neutral company for scopes 1 and 2, and for certain elements of scope 3 emissions. But we've still got a lot more work to do for scope 3, because that includes the wider chain, so businesses and partners that we work with. But most importantly, it also includes our back book of properties, which we have to look at their energy efficiency rating, and that goes towards our carbon footprint. So this has led to us to look at new ways to help people buy more energy efficient homes, and also help with the affordability conundrum. So the slide deck that you've got up in front of you shows some information that we've taken from Karma, Ofgem and Cornwall Insight, and it shows the impact of what having a more energy efficient home can mean, both in the amount of carbon that your home produces, and also the amount of money that it can actually save someone. So I want to draw your attention to the EPCD rating. So looking at the gov.uk website, the average EPC for UK homes is a D. And so if you look at the average utility bill in 2022, that's at 1,179, and a house would produce 3.7 tonnes of carbon per year. So in our research, we looked at all new build properties and estimated that around 85% of new build properties that have been built since 2020 have an average EPC rating of B or higher. And that, if comparing to that average EPC rating of D, means that there's an approximate 20% savings versus a D-rated property to a B-rated property, and will save around 1.5 tonnes of carbon per year. So at Leeds Building Society, we've used that information and factored it into our affordability assessment using ONS data. So it means that we can lend customers more money when they're buying a more energy efficient new build property. And I've got a scenario to take you through now, which hopefully highlights that. So the example that you see on your screen there, so it's a first-time buyer who's looking to buy a property worth 220,000. They've got a joint income of 55,000, but they've got pretty substantial commitments. They've got a £250 loan, and they've also got a £500 commitment for childcare costs. The loan's over for 25 years, and the loan amount they need is 165,000, so that's 75% loan to value, and they've got one child as a dependent. So this is screenshots that I've taken from our affordability calculator, and these are correct as of this morning. These numbers do sometimes fluctuate a little bit due to the ONS data that we use, and that changes, but these are accurate as of this morning. So you can see that I've put in all the information required. So you've got the borrowing amount and the term and the amount, but I want to draw your attention to this bit over here, the pre-2020 tab. So this states means that the system knows that the customer at the moment is currently buying a standard build, so a non-new build property, and the amount we can lend to them is 149,480. So before I go on to the next slide, I want to see what you all think of how much do you think the loan's going to go up by when we change it to a new build property, therefore more energy efficient. How much do you think the loan will go up by? So if you could have a look at the poll and see what you think. Excellent. Thank you very much for taking part in that. So just share the results with you now. So we've got 12% think 5,000 or under, 32% of you think around 10,000, 39% of you think around 15,000, and the other 17% think 20,000 or over. So yeah, you're right. It would be a pretty poor example if it failed affordability. I don't think that would be the best way of showing to you what we can actually do in this kind of scenario. So I'll go on to the next page now. So you can see over here, we've clicked that the property has been built since 2020 onwards. So it means that the system now recognises that it's a new build property and therefore more energy efficient. And we've been able to lend the customer £172,220, which is an increase of £22,740. So that's quite an impressive amount, especially for some first-time buyers. And this also does work on shared ownership and at high loan to value. So it is there to be able to use and help customers change their behaviour to buy more energy efficient new build homes. And we are working at ways that we can try and extend this both into retrofit and in the second home market that have got a higher EPC. We're just trying to find ways of being able to verify that, but it is further development that we would like to go into. One key thing that I need to make sure that you're aware of is that when this scenario works really well for us, because the customer is not getting our full salary multiple, the maximum that we can lend to a customer is 4.75 times their salary. So if you've got a customer that's coming to us who's got a really good loan to value, really good income, no debts, no commitments, then it means that they're straight away going to get to that maximum 4.75 times salary multiple. So in that case, it means that when they're doing trying to buy a property which is either non-new build or new build, it means there won't be any difference in the amount that they borrow. Whereas if the customer has got debts and commitments, so they're not getting that full 4.75 times salary, but they are buying a new build property, then that's when we're able to give them that enhanced affordability stretch due to the energy savings that they're going to be getting by buying that new build property. So just a few other little things that we are doing. So we've got some fantastic information on our website around about being able to live greener, about some of the green initiatives that we do at Leeds Building Society. It's also got a fantastic little guide on how to read and understand your energy performance certificate. So really important for customers who might be looking to make changes to their property. We've also got a tool on there for from the Energy Savings Trust, where if a customer is looking to borrow more money from us on a remortgage and they want to do works to their properties, then it gives them a little bit of guidance of the actions that they could take. So the customer just puts in their postcode, answers a few questions about their property, their energy usage, and the number of people that are living in their home. And the system will then tell them what their effective EPC rating is, and then the actions that they can take within their budget and what would make the most impact in terms of their EPC rating and therefore their carbon footprint. You can even tell it your budget. So in this scenario, we've got a £5,000 budget, and it's worked back the most important actions that they could take for the house of their size that would then make the biggest impact into making their savings on their utility bills. That's it from me. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me. I will now hand you over to Adam for the next session.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, James. Really good stuff that you're doing at Leeds. I think you're addressing the major problem at the moment, affordability, and you've got some really useful tools there. So, yeah, my name's Adam Sheldon, National Account Manager at Kensington Mortgages, and I'm going to talk to you a bit about what we're doing here to try and support the climate. So, next slide, please, James. Yeah, brilliant. So, just sort of picking on Rachael's session as well, which was really informative. It's not all doom and gloom. I think we're all in agreement that we do need a long-term sustainable plan in order to get to net zero, which involves obviously government support as well as the private sector. Rachael touched upon the spend going on to clean energy on a global scale. It's going through the roof. There's more spend now on clean energy than on oil and gas. I think another important point to make for policymakers is that energy security. So by investing and decarbonising our homes, it just makes sense really because of the inflation that we've had. Energy is a big driver to inflation. And if we're less reliant on imported oil and gas, it means that cheaper cost to run, homes become more affordable, and people can sort of get on with their lives. So I think that's real positive to sort of be involved in this. Rachael also mentioned the cost to retrofit homes. I think UK Finance estimated this at a £250 billion opportunity. That's going to need a lot of support from lenders and brokers, and a real opportunity to engage with your customers. In order to actually achieve it, we do need retrofit jobs to be launched and at scale. So there's the possibility, if we do get this right and if we do get to net zero, it's a race that we can win, as Rachael mentioned. There's going to be a sustainable job boom. So that with the likes of AI, it could be the sectors that drive growth once we've tamed inflation, which seems to be heading in the right direction now. I've been to a few events recently where energy efficiency of homes is definitely more of a consideration to buyers. I think Savills come up with a report this year to say that 77% of buyers now say that the energy efficiency of homes is now more of a consideration. There's often an argument around a shortage of demand for green properties from consumers. I think there's a willingness there. I think it's probably they don't know how to do it, and obviously there's a affordability problem with the cost potentially as well. So I think if we get those things right, I think we will see the demand come in a real big way. And lastly, there's lots of doom and gloom out there in the world around mortgages and also around energy efficiency and sustainability. If you want a sort of feel-good website to check out, ecology.com, and that's ecology spelled with an I at the end. They've got a good news timeline, so it does go through some of the good projects that have come to fruition, and actually some positive steps are being done across the world and here in the UK, so do check that out. Next slide, please, James. So in terms of what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk a bit about actually how a product arrives at a shelf. So rather than look at our products, which we'll come on to later, I'm going to talk to you about our green bond Finsbury Square deal that we secured, which is quite interesting. I'll then talk about our ESG targets, and then I'll move on to some of the products that we've got. Next slide, please. Yeah, and again, James, thank you. Fantastic. So yeah, this is our commitment to green lending. So in 2021, we secured our Finsbury Square deal, so our capital markets team, which was the first green bond in the UK and only the third in Europe. So what that basically means is we went to the securitization market to secure capital in order to invest in green mortgages, which we defined as A and B rated properties. Now, there was so much interest and demand from investors. We had 23 unique investors, so typically it's around 3 or 5. So we actually upsized the tranche from 477 million to 640 million. So it's a real big win for us. We actually allocated all those proceeds within 2 years. We set ourselves a 5-year target. And the other interesting thing about it is we set up a green bond framework, which met international standards. So there's a lot of talk about ESG and what does good look like in terms of a governance perspective, and that met international standards in terms of the funding of the bonds. That's a real big win for us. And if you look at the global sustainable debt issuance on the chart on the bottom left-hand side, this is basically investments into green projects and social projects over time. So you can actually see that it's starting to creep up and really went through the roof, sort of peaking in 2021. We did see it dip a little bit last year, but indications now are that it's back up and running again. So I think there's this acknowledgement from investors that they want to invest in green and sustainable projects, make a return as well, but also do good. Next slide, please, James. And again, thank you. Yeah, so we're also the first specialist lender to launch our own ESG targets. We feel this is the right thing to do. They get reviewed every year to make sure that they're relevant, and we also publicly release the results to hold ourselves accountable and for transparency as well. So there's lots of different focuses on there, which you can see, including reducing our carbon emissions in our office, recycling, as well as some of our green products, which I'll come on to in a second. But there is an S of the ESG, which is social. And as a specialist lender, we feel that solutions should be available, not just to mainstream customers, but to underserved borrowers as well. And that includes green finance. But we've also got a target of 50% of our loans to go to social borrowers, which underrepresented borrowers such as self-employed, and also key workers such as nurses through our Heroes range. So that's a real big win for us as well. And one thing I would say, Rachel touched upon this, is that everybody can have a sustainability plan. I know brokers that plant a tree on offer, and that's a feel-good moment for the customer. Some firms have gone completely carbon neutral. So there's things that we can do together, or you can do as businesses, in order to attract and retain borrowers. So we feel having ESG targets will make us more competitive in the future as well. So I guess we shouldn't shy away from that. And I was also reading in the FT that Rolex, for example, they've now got an environmental section on their website. So, you know, those luxury goods have an environmental section on the website which tells you as a consumer about all their projects they're investing in. And this is something that we can all do ourselves as well. So if we are doing things in this space, let's shout about it, because consumers will want to do business with you, obviously to try and get the mortgage and the right solution for you, but they also now want to do business with companies that meet their values as well. Next slide, please, James. And again. So another first for us is that we were the first specialist lender to actually come out with a green product. We started with the sector which we feel needs the most innovation, which is second-hand homes. So our cashback product would give customers £1,000 cashback if they improved the EPC rating, or by 10 standard assessment points. So there is a link at the bottom of the slide which goes to the government website. So what this tells the customer is what their existing band is, and what improvements can be made in order to increase the efficiency of the home. You can see on the table on the right hand side the energy efficiency improvements and the SAT points that would actually set the improvements of the SAT points. So for example, you could change the light bulbs, which I've done recently following my girlfriend moving in, which is a 2 SAT points, and you can actually insulate the hot water cylinder, quite a cost-effective solution. That could bring, if that was a suggested improvement, that would qualify for the £1,000 cashback. So it can be quite cost-effective. In most cases, 10 SAT points will probably move you up in the band depending on where the property is, but it doesn't have to. So as long as you improve the efficiency by 10 SAT points, you could stay in the same EPC band, but we're still rewarding that positive consumer behaviour. So all of these are now available on both buy-to-let and residential. They're also available on our cheapest range as well. So the customers get the cheapest range and they get the cash back. So we've had examples of landlords and residential applicants that have been a Kensington customer, then qualified for the cashback. And we give a 12-month window in order to make the improvement. So we acknowledge the seasonal things that happen. It's not always a priority to do the job straight away when you move into the house, for example. Things can go wrong. So we give the applicants enough time in order to make that improvement. And then we just request a new EPC certificate. And as long as we can demonstrate the uplift in EPC banding or SAT points, we will then give the customer that cashback. So that's a real incentive to try and encourage behaviour. We then developed our Eco Reward product. So that offers cash back on properties A and B, and for residential A, B, and C for buy-to-let. And yeah, so that's basically, if they hit those benchmarks, we will just give a cash back. So it's kind of encouraging to buy a property that's energy efficient already. And I think that's me done. So in terms of future developments, we will be working closely with Barclays. I'm going to hand over to Erika in just a second, but it's also important just to remind you that we are a lender that prides ourselves on innovation and service. So I think it's 22 months now that we've been reviewing cases for day one as well. So we will continue to invest in that side of things. So that's me done, and I'll now hand over to Erika.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for that. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I work in Barclays in the product development team, and I look after products and propositions for green homes, and just trying, overall to get our customers to retrofit their homes and have a comfier, healthier, happier home, which is our goal. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit. I'll be really quick. I think it's always a risk going last. So lucky everybody, I've not got many slides. So if you just can go for my first slide, please. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our products. So we started our journey developing green propositions for the mortgages market back in 2018, when we were one of the first lenders to launch a green home mortgage. And so far, we've helped over 12,000 customers purchase an energy efficient home. And one of our key goals with this proposition is to help incentivize builders build more energy efficient homes. And especially, at the time when it was launched, many homes were still being built that were not to A or B EPC rating. So just as a reminder, the eligibility criteria for green mortgages, for the Barclays green home mortgages are, it needs to be for the purchase of an A/B rated new build home. We will offer, we will require a EPC of A or B, or we also accept PEA. So even if the home is not complete yet, it doesn't have an EPC, you can still submit a case as long as the customer can have the PEA, and you can get that from the builders. We will offer discounted interest rates on a range of products versus the standard rate. We've also got a range of fixed rate terms, and it's available for residential and buy-to-let properties. So next slide, please. So now, we know the new homes are key to achieve net zero in the housing sector. They will play a really important part, but this still leaves a significant gap. The biggest challenge by far in the sector, as you know, many have talked about before me, Rachael alluded to this, is retrofitting the existing housing stock. We know that 80% of homes that will exist in 2050 have already been built. We know the British homes are one of the most poorly insulated in Europe. I know we all know that pretty well. In fact, according to a recent UK finance report, to meet the UK government's 2050 net zero target will require a home being upgraded every 2 minutes between now and 2050. So it's a lot of homes that need to be upgraded. And also, as Rachael said in her talk, the estimated cost of bringing the entire UK housing stock to a minimum of EPC of C will be around 250 billion. So that's a huge, huge challenge, but equally, I think it's a huge opportunity, and a huge opportunity for us as a sector to help drive that change forward as well. And we know, this is a challenge that is not just one actor will be able to solve this. Is multifaceted issue and require a range of actors, and that includes banks and includes brokers as well. And from our side in Barclays, we have over 1 million mortgage customers, and we really want to play a part in this challenge. So to support our mortgage customers to retrofit, if we can move to the next slide, please. We launched the Green Home Reward back in late October 2022. And this reward, essentially this scheme, offers up to £2,000 for customers installing any one from a list of energy efficient measures in their homes. And you can see on the table on the right the types of measures that we cover. So from heat pumps through to solar hot water heating, and also solar PVs, insulation, new windows, new doors, etc. There's quite a lot that we cover. And to be eligible, they must be a residential mortgage customer. They need to register on a website, complete the works using a Trustmark registered installer, and then they need to claim, showing the evidence that the works have been completed. And there's a bit more eligibility criteria. So for full information, check out our website. You can search Green Home Reward. Yeah, and you can see there, I've just added a little taster of what customers have been claiming for. As you can see, solar energy is a firm favorite. And actually, this data is slightly old, but it remains actually quite up to date. We're still seeing solar is the favorite. And look, and this just gives you an opportunity to speak to your customers that have a Barclays residential mortgage. I think it's a great opportunity to say, did you know about this Green Home Reward? And I think something really interesting as well is that most of the customers that have claimed, we know they've used savings to pay for the rewards. So we also then have an opportunity. What about the customers that need further lending, further borrowing to help fund these works? So I think there could be an interesting opportunity to engage customers on this point, and to help them with more lending as well. So I think that was, oh, sorry, next slide, I've got one more slide. The next slide is just to say as well, we've launched a new consumer green hub on our website, on our main website, and you can check out, there's lots of articles. We've written some of these in partnership with the Energy Saving Trust, which has also been mentioned. And we've got some customer offers as well. So right now, we offer residential mortgage customers 50% off Hive Mini Smart Thermostats, which is a great offer, and it helps, it helps them take small steps towards making their homes more energy efficient. So you can check out the content. And again, if you have any, we would love to increasingly work with brokers to understand, you know, how can we help more? What else can we do? So any feedback, any thoughts, what else would you like to see us doing as well? Please be in touch, get in touch with me or your usual Barclays contact as well. I'd be really happy to discuss any ideas. And I think that was it for me. So I hand it back to James.
That's great. Thank you very much for that, Erika. So what I was going to do quickly is just do our final poll and have a look, see how you found this session. So we've just got two very quick questions. So how confident do you now feel about discussing green lending with your customers? And would you like to see more sessions like this focused on green lending in the future? Brilliant. Well, it's fantastic to see that 100% of you said that you'd like to see more of those, more of these sessions. So that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for taking part in that poll and for taking part in the session. We've had a couple of questions come in, so I just wanted to go over some of them. In fact, Adam, would you mind on this one? So this one I think was focused around your product of how do you prove you've insulated the boiler and changed the bulb?
Yeah, so we just ask for an updated EPC register, EPC certificate. So as long as we've got a 12-month window, get the jobs done. It doesn't have to be specifically that, but as long as we can see that uplift in the SAT points or the EPC, then we would then give the cash back to the customer.
Excellent, that's great. Thanks, Adam. There was a few in the chat. Hopefully you've been able to read some of them. There was one in there from Angus around our enhanced affordability. At the moment, for the enhanced affordability that we do is only available on new build properties, but it is something that we're looking into to be able to, I suppose, roll it out to our further lending proposition. If there's any more questions, I'll give it one more minute. Let's see if another one's coming in. Erika, there's one for you there. Is the cash back on any product?
So the Green Home Reward is not linked to taking out any lending. I should have mentioned that actually. As long as the customer has an existing residential mortgage with us, it doesn't matter what product they're on, but it needs to be residential, so owner occupied. And they, as long as they meet the other eligibility criteria which are on the website, then they should be eligible. So it's not. It doesn't matter what rate they're on when they took out their product. I hope that answers.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Apologies that we've run over by a few minutes, but other than that, that is the end of this session. So thank you very much for joining, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.